Hi, I'm Vicki Westling here with City Speaks. City Speaks is a show that's brought to you by Mayor Wilfred Rosas, and it's here for you, the residents of the city of Dunkirk and the surrounding area, to let you know what's going on in our area, what's going on in our city, and what's going on in our schools. And today we have two very special guests with us to talk about what's happening in our schools. We have our school superintendent, Michael Mansfield, and we have our director of facilities and transportation, Tim Abbey. So gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, because everybody wants to know what's happening with our schools. So why don't you give me a quick call? Let me know what's going on. Let me know what's happening.
Okay. Well, we were hoping you would tell us.
Oh, okay.
No, I think it's important for our community to know, especially our parents, that we have been receiving a great deal of guidance from our state education department, from our governor, that I think a lot of people get to watch his news conferences. And really what we do is based largely on what they direct us to do or mandate us to do. So Governor Cuomo earlier in the month, you may recall, said that as long as we're in phase 4 schools, he plans on schools opening in the fall. Shortly thereafter that, at that time, they issued, New York State Department of Health issued guidance for safety guidelines for schools to start looking at in terms of possible reopening. And then shortly after that, our state education department came out with their guidance for opening schools, which was very extensive, a 143-page document.
Wow.
On how to do that, which includes a great deal of health and safety, of course, safety number one, students and staff, and then how we're going to try to do that instructionally in a safe environment.
So now, do you have a target date to open the schools? Or at this point, are you planning to open on your regular day? That would be September the...
Right after Labor Day.
Right after Labor Day, okay.
Yeah, so right now, today, as it stands, we're planning to open on the regular calendar. So the school calendar, so after Labor Day, we end up coming back to school. So
I think the governor was going to make a decision the first week of August, if that's a go.
Okay.
Yes. So we'll get more guidance, we anticipate, in the first week of August when the governor comes out and says, this is what's going to happen.
Okay. So now when you open, right now, are you looking at, I'm sure you have several plans in place. One would be in the classroom. You might also do the remote learning. Is that correct? Am I saying that right?
Yep.
And then there may be a combination of the two.
Yeah, they call that a hybrid model. So we have three, we're directed by the state to prepare 3 plans. In person, which would be what people would consider normal school. You go to school every day, your teachers, your students, everybody together. The remote learning, which is just the opposite, no one goes to the buildings, which we fell into this last spring, which we would be working to do a lot better than we did, of course, then. And then the hybrid, which could be just that. It could be some of our kids are coming every day, some are remote learning. It could be a mix of those kind of things. So that's the kind of the model that you will hear a lot about, not just in Dunkirk, but around the region with our local superintendents in the BOCES. We had a conference yesterday and a lot of talk about that hybrid model because of the need to space students and the need to have the masks and the social distancing and all that would be involved in transportation and so on. It's really going to be hard for school districts to come back in person.
Right. And now, speaking of transportation, as the director for facilities and transportation, how are you going to manage this with the buses, with the children?
Well, the guidance so far is, if we're in the hybrid model, the schools can go to a moderate risk capacity, which is basically about 1 student per seat. And very low risk would be about 7 or 8 kids per the whole bus if we did extreme social distancing. So I think we're in a low risk area, fortunately for us. So, and that kind of determines where you fall in that busing matrix. So if we stay in low risk, we can use a moderate risk busing scenario. So we're hoping to get around 25 student riders on there, and the state mandates that each one of those riders has to wear a mask. Including pre-screen, like you asked earlier.
Right.
So they should be doing some sort of pre-screen at home with their family. The schools have to develop a way to ensure that happened.
Okay. Let's talk about that for a second, because in the classroom, we have especially, the desks are close together, so those are going to have to be adjusted.
Right. Yep.
And then we have the screening, and now the school will not do testing, is that correct?
Right. If we have a student that screens positive temperature or the screening, we then have a protocol that we'll have to have in place to help with that student, to get the parent notified, to get them home, and then
We have to mandate we have an isolation room
Yeah.
that the student, suspected screened positive student is waiting in this isolation room. We have to create that.
So now, will students be screened when they enter the school building? You will not actually screen them at that time, is that correct?
Right now, the requirement is that you are going to have a heavy reliance on screening at home, and some kind of way in which we're still working out that you can ensure that that happened. And if you can't ensure that happened, that's when you would screen at the school. So we do have enough equipment, and we're going to start working on staffing on how that screening process would actually happen. Because we have around 2,300 students, so
Right.
that's a lot of time to screen that many kids every day.
And now,
But if we're in hybrid, you're screening half of that, so it makes the numbers somewhat more manageable.
are you thinking that the possibility of going into hybrid is more likely? Or you think that that's probably going to be the preferred method or the preferred plan?
I think that is the number one priority right now. Just looking at our situation with transportation, the number of students we have, our elementary buildings are very tight already. So to try to have all our elementary students in at the same time, it does not work with the safety measures that we have to put in place. So right now we're thinking of a hybrid model. We continue to look at other options in terms of, can we move students around to open up some space so that maybe more elementary kids can come every day, the students we want to have every day, and hybrid some of the other pieces.
And now, of course, we also have the teachers. So the teachers will it be their responsibility to test at home, or will they test when they come into the building?
I think
Or screened, I'm sorry.
the guidance does give us a mechanism to let them screen themselves, and if they weren't able to, then we can screen them when they come in.
Okay, so you do have protocols in place for screening.
Yeah, Mr. Abbey, we've been doing that for our interview process.
Yeah, it's been working well.
Candidates
It's been a
screen
good pilot
themselves
for us.
on an app when
Okay.
they come in. So
And
that's-
it requires the same questions that you're all familiar with hearing, and they haven't changed, and a temperature, reading your temperature.
And now, of course, we talk about change, and anything can happen. I mean, we could be here today saying this is what we think we're going to do, and tomorrow something will come up, and so it's a very fluid process.
Very
that correct?
fluid, yes.
Now, and of course, we have special needs students. How will is there a separate protocol for handling the special needs students?
Well, if you're special needs students, if you're thinking of medically fragile, which we
Right.
have those too, there's going to have to be a protocol in place for the students who are medically fragile to make sure they're ultimately safe. One of the key pieces of the guidance from the state is that we have to have what they call equity, which means every student has access to to a program of education. So we'll have to accommodate those kind of situations, special needs, physical needs, medical vulnerability. Even for staff, there's going to be issues that we'll have to work through on that.
Okay, so now you have a 143-page document that you've sorted through, and I'm sure your healthcare professionals, your staff nurses, or whatever they may be, whatever the correct title might be,
School nurse, yeah.
school nurses,
And
so they
school
have had to
physician,
go
yeah.
through some of this as well. Is that correct?
They have a component in, what is there, 12 groups, 12
Yeah.
categories?
Yeah, at least 12. Yeah.
So each component, social, emotional well-being, all of them facilities link back to the health and safety piece. And it's huge, and our nurses, I can't give them enough credit. They're putting in a large amount of time and a large amount of thought into how to accomplish this the safest way possible for not only themselves, the staff, and the children, and just working through all the scenarios, and there's countless scenarios. One leads to another, and they've been putting in a lot of time. we're going to continue to be putting in a lot of time. Like Mr. Mansfield said, when July 31st is one thing, but this is going to take the entire summer to really get this right.
Mm-hmm.
And now, so we've talked about the screening of the individual. What about the school itself, the desk, the doorknobs, the bathrooms, and then, of course, the playground equipment?
Mm-hmm.
How is that being handled?
I'll let Mr. Abbey start with that.
Once we get the schedule nailed down so we know who's where and when, I think we could start to fit in what types of disinfection will be needed and when we can do it, because there's stipulations in there in the guidance too on not applying chemicals while kids are in the room. Of course you wouldn't want that, so we have to specify in our plan how we are going to make sure that we're sanitizing the most that we can when we can the safest.
So you see how it starts to tie into the instructional and schedules, because we have to take that into account.
Huge.
If we're having students go to a cafeteria, social distance and so on, then we have to have time for that to be cleaned before the next group comes in. Another piece of the instructional that's being really emphasized to us is what they're calling cohorting, which means we take a group of kids and they stay together. And they don't necessarily even travel, but maybe teachers come to them through the course
Possibly
of the
the
day.
lunch could come to them, so the least amount of movement.
Okay.
And
Because
exposure to each other.
that kind of comes back to the buzzword contact tracing. So if you keep them in cohorts as much as you possibly can, and somehow you did have a positive case, you can identify this cohort is probably the most affected by that one, and it narrows down quickly, how many people could have been exposed. So
So by minimizing the contacts, basically, is what you're doing.
Yep.
So you'd have the little pods,
Right.
if you will, of
Yep.
students. How will our other programs, our sports programs, our arts programs, the band, how will those things be? How will they be affected by this? And do you expect to have a sports program?
Well, the sports, the section, the state actually, the Public High School Association has already moved fall sports start date back about a month. It's supposed to start on August 24th with practices. It's now September 21st. There will be no fall regional or state championships. So there might be a season, but they don't get to go on and do that. So they've shortened it already. Their backup plan, should we not be able to do that, is to run a mini 3-season second semester. So you'd start in the winter in January with your basketball and your traditional winter sports. Some of the fall sports would be run then in March and April, and then your traditional spring would then run in May and June. So that's where it is right now.
3 seasons condensed into
Semester.
Into one semester. Well, so that would work as well. And now, of course, we
and
have
I think no state championships at all if they had to go that route. So.
Yeah.
And now you're coordinating. You mentioned with the other school districts, other superintendents, the other certainly instructors and directors. How is that going, and how are you causing some sense of collaboration and even cohesiveness in the way you're handling these things?
That's a very good question. And since this all started, the superintendents in our BOCES, led by Dr. O'Rourke, our district superintendent, have been meeting weekly on Zoom sessions. Every week we have a Zoom session and a meeting, and it really has developed a cooperative sharing of ideas. One of the areas that we're looking at now, we'll be talking a little bit about tomorrow in another meeting we're going to have, is coordinating some of these, if we get into these hybrid schedules, daycare for our parents and our families, that the child care facilities and employers have a big stake in this. So we have to work collaboratively together to work with those individuals so people can go to work and we can keep those kind of things going. So that's a good example, I think, of some of the things we've been working on as a unit.
Okay. And now from a parental point of view, what input will the parents have into what you're doing, how you're handling things? Will you be speaking with the parents? How will you be getting their input?
Yes. We are working as we speak. We have people working on a parent survey that we're trying to do and have a really robust survey to get the kind of information that we need from parents as to where they are with their child and what they're willing to do with their child, as terms of send them to an in-person instruction if we have it properly, as safe as we can. Can they support remote at home? Do we have internet? Do we have reliable internet? Can I support them at home? Do I need child care for my employment? Those kind of things, family connections. Many of our older siblings babysit, if you will, or care for their younger sibling. So we want to get as much of that information, have really good information, so we can put the best program tailored to our community that we can. So that parent survey, I'm really hoping to have it out tonight. If not, it will be tomorrow. That we will have that parent survey out. So I'd encourage our parents to stay tuned to answer that survey.
Okay, so now we're recording this on the 23rd, so you're hoping the survey will be out on the 24th, and then they will have a set time to get that back to you.
Yep.
Okay. How else could parents, or how could somebody who has a question, a caregiver of a child, maybe, because we have children who come home and there's nobody there, but then there's somebody to come in and look after them or check on them. How can they contact you, or if they have questions or concerns, what should they do?
One avenue is our board meetings. We're going to meet weekly until we have a plan, until we have school open, and we maybe even go into that. The board is very involved and concerned very much about what we're going to do. So our board meetings are live streamed now because of the pandemic, so they can be seen. That's one way. You always can call your child's school. We have people there. We're all working. If they have questions, that's another way. And then we do have some parents serving on our
We got about 15 parents on
reopening
our
committees.
team.
Now, how would, if it's live streamed, how do they tune in? How do they contact it? Where do they go to pick up that live
The
stream?
instructions are right on our webpage.
Okay, so and your webpage is Dunkirk.
CSD.org.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
DunkirkCSD.org for Dunkirk Central School District.
Yep.
.org, DunkirkCSD.org. So they can go to your webpage. They can find out how to tune in to the
Yep.
live stream. And is there a place there that they could also submit questions or submit concerns?
Yes, I believe they can submit written questions, and then during the course of the meeting, I think twice we ask any written communications.
And those meetings are every Thursday?
Every Tuesday. Well, we're going to be every Tuesday now until further notice.
Okay.
Every Tuesday, 5:30 we begin. We'll probably we do take care of some business aspects, but then we go into a workshop, and that's where we're talking about this.
Okay.
And where people, if they had a question and could get it into the system, we have people looking for those questions.
Okay, so if you have a question, if you have a concern, go to DunkirkCSD.org. Tune in to the live stream board meetings every Tuesday at 5:30, and then are those? Is there any other? Or call the school. Call your child's school if you need to. You
Yep.
can always do that, right?
Yep.
Is there anything else that we've left out that you think the parents need to know, or the teachers or the students need to know at this time?
I would just say to our parents and our staff that, I want them to know we have literally an army of people that are going to work on this, to be patient with us, give us their feedback as much as they can, and our aim is to open safely, because we do believe that our students need to be in school. We're going to open as safely as we can, with as quality an instructional program as we can. And we're working on that every minute now.
Right. And of course, when school opens up, it'll be social distancing, it'll be mask required, all the protocols need to be in place. And, so you're here for the kids, and I think that's great. I think that's great for the parents. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, this is where you go, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. So thank you, Superintendent Mansfield. Thank you,
Thank you.
Director Abbey. We really appreciate having you here. I think it's important. And thank all of you for watching City Speaks. You can watch City Speaks daily on Dunkirk Access 1301 at 3 o'clock and 10 o'clock. You can watch it by going to DunkirkAccess.com. You can watch it on YouTube anytime at your leisure. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you like. Send your comments, questions, concerns to cityspeaks@cityofdunkirk.com. You may snail mail me at City Speaks, City of Dunkirk, 342 Central Avenue, Dunkirk, New York, 14048. Thank you so much, and thank you for watching City Speaks, and have a great day.